In this video, we will set up webhooks to synchronize events happening outside of our SaaS. The process purchase info function that we created will save the purchase that happened live in our SaaS through the background implementation of the checkout that we created earlier. So just for a recap, whenever we are making any purchase from our application using any of the components that we created, it will call this route on the backend, which will call the process purchase info, which in turn will save the entitlements that came with the purchase. However, there are still cases we need to process that can happen outside of our SaaS. For example, I can subscribe to a monthly plan right now, and a new entry under the user FS entitlement will be created where the expiration field will be set 1 month in the future. But then after a month, the subscription renewal will happen, yet my SaaS won't have any way to know about its status. So then locally, my SaaS can think that, okay, the entitlement has expired. To solve this, we have to create webhook listeners with Freemius. So Freemius will send events to our webhook listeners, for example, when the subscription renews, and then we will run our logic based on those events. Creating webhook processors is very easy with the Freemius JavaScript SDK. We will start by creating 2 more functions in the user entitlement file. The first function will be sync entitlement from webhook. Again, we will refer to our documentation. So I can just go ahead and copy the function from the documentation here. This function will be called to synchronize any entitlement record based on webhook events. So what we are doing is we are verifying the event by calling freemius.purchase.retrieve_purchase. And once we get the purchase information, we can call the process purchase info, the same function that we wrote earlier. Next, we also need to write a handler when entitlements are deleted from Freemius. This can happen due to manual action from the developer dashboard, or in case users want to erase their data. In that case, let us copy the delete entitlement function that we have on our documentation. This is pretty straightforward. This is just a database operation that erases the record based on the license ID. With this, the functions needed for the webhook listeners are now complete. Now we will go and create the webhook listener file itself. So under the app, we can create a file webhook/route, which will give us a URL/webhook for our application. And here we can again copy the code from our documentation. Now let us go through the code and understand what this is doing. So first we create a listener by calling the webhook.createListener on the Freemius SDK. Then we listen for specific licensing events like license created, license extended, shortened, updated, cancelled, expired, and plan changed. We specifically listen for license events because license is what governs access control in Freemius. Like we explained in some of the earlier videos, a subscription can be created today. For example, I can subscribe for a yearly plan, then I can cancel my subscription 3 months from now. That does not mean that my access to the SaaS is now removed because I have paid for the entire year. For that, and to provide such flexibility, Freemius provides license along with subscriptions. Our recommendation is to listen for license events when you are creating the webhook listeners for the first time. So what we are doing is whenever license is created, updated, extended, then we are calling the sync entitlement from webhook. This will make sure that whenever a subscription is renewed, the expiration date is synchronized with our local database. Also, if the pricing ID of a subscription changes or the plan ID of the license of the subscription changes, then it will also get synchronized to our database. This can happen if the user is updating their plan through the customer portal we implement it here or through some other marketing channel that you might have. So this will make sure that everything is synchronized between Freemius and our SaaS. Another thing we need to do, because we are entitling credits to our user, is create another listener for the license.extended event. So the license.extended, it can be called if the license gets extended manually or because of the subscription renewal. Now let us hook to this event. And our goal here is to provide credits whenever the license is extended due to a renewal of a subscription. To understand if the event was called due to the renewal, we have data.isRenewal. So if data.isRenewal, then we want to renew the credits of the user. For that, let us consider an imaginary function, renew credits from Webhook, and pass the license ID that we have from the data. Now let's go ahead and implement this function on the user entitlement file. So what this function will do is, it will first get the purchase information from the Freemius API, validating and making sure that the license ID is valid. And if the license ID is valid, then it will look into the local database, find out the entitlement that is already stored, and based on the pricing ID of the purchase, it will give additional credits to the user. So if I am on monthly plan and I am supposed to get 100 credits per month, then on the next month, as my subscription renews, this function will be responsible to give me the additional 100 credits for that month. So let's go ahead and implement this. First, we need to go to the Freemius API and make sure that the license ID is valid. For that, we have freemius.purchase.retrieve function. If it is valid, now we will do the lookup in our database. Now, just like before, we can call the get entitled credits to ascertain what is the number of credits associated with this purchase. We also want to query the entitlement database table to make sure that this entitlement is tracked. For that, we can find the unique item by the license ID. Okay. And if there is entitlement and if the credit is greater than 0, then we can give the credit to the user. So now let's go ahead and wrap this up, and our webhook listener is ready. One interesting thing to note here is that you can see the Freemius JavaScript SDK has create request processor method that creates the function needed by the Next.js route handler. Great. So now we need to go back to our Freemius developer dashboard. Inside integration, go to Webhooks and add a new webhook. Let's say my SaaS is available at mysas.com and the URL to the webhook listener is /webhook. Then we will select the type of events we want to send. It will be all of the events that we have listed here, or you can also choose to send all of the events. It's up to you. We recommend sending only the events that you are explicitly listening to. So let's go ahead and do the license created, license extended, license shortened, license updated, license cancelled, expired, and the plan changed. While you are developing and testing things out, you can use some service like ngrok to create tunnels to test out the webhook listeners. Now, one thing to notice here is that we are not bound to listen only to license events. We can also listen to other events. Let's say, for example, we want to send a custom marketing email if the subscription renewal fails. For that, we can do something like listener on subscription.renewal.failed. And we can get here the subscription itself and send some custom marketing email based on the subscription. To understand what are all of the events that Freemius supports, you can look into our docs. You can go under Setup for SaaS and Apps and look inside Events and Webhooks. This guide lists all of the webhooks that our system sends and what they mean. For the payload of the webhooks, you can use any modern IDE, like I am using VS Code here, which will give you type hints about the payload that comes with the events. And using that, you can implement your custom logic. So this concludes the implementation of Webhook, and with that, our entire integration is now complete. Your application is now fully monetized, and you can start selling subscriptions and one-off purchases with a click of a button. In the next video, we will see how we can very easily deploy the application we have created using Vercel and Superbase.